Hi everyone, welcome to Football 360 1-to-1. This episode's guest is Dave Kennedy, soon to be the Chief Executive Officer of the Jersey Football Association. I can't think of many people in football administration who would be better qualified to take such a role. He started off as a player at Coventry City before playing for Dunfermline, Livingston and Alloa Athletic. And whilst playing in semi-professional leagues up in Scotland, he gained extensive experience as a coach, working with various different age groups, going through his UEFA badges at Largs, which is a famous kind of producer of coaching talent and managerial talent. Lots and lots of fantastic names he's had the pleasure to spend time with during his life in football. And then he moved to the Channel Islands in his 30s, where he has had a huge influence not only on the results on the pitch for Jersey teams. Unfortunately for those of us of a Guernsey persuasion, he's had a lot of success as a manager, but he also has helped to produce some fantastic young footballers, put terrific development schemes in place in Jersey. He's worked for the government as a sports development officer, and his influence on not just Jersey football but Jersey society, I think, is huge, and I'm certain that it will continue. That will continue to be the case in his new role. Dave's views on physical literacy for young kids and the way that's changed over the years are really interesting. His views on the game, the tactical side of the game, player development, coach mentoring, coaching pathways. The guy is an encyclopedia when it comes to football and his experiences in the game. And his knowledge is something that I'm really pleased to be able to get and to share with you guys listening to this or watching this. So I hope you enjoy this episode as much as I'm going to. Okay, welcome everyone to the show. Great to have you all with us, and I'm delighted to have Mr. David Kennedy here with us today. Dave is at the moment he's the elect Chief Executive of the Jersey Football Association, and a guy that I've crossed paths with more than once in the past. So Dave, great to have you on, pal.
No, thanks for having me on, Kev. Really looking forward to it, actually.
Me too, pal. Me too. I think it'll be good. I think it'll be a good one. Right. So without further ado, I'm going to go straight into a few questions as the warm up. So to start off with, your favourite player ever and why?
Oh goodness. I would probably have to pitch for Xavi. I think that Xavi for me sort of broke the mould at the time. I think as did Pep, obviously, with what he did at Barcelona. But I think that just the sheer skill, the trickery, that you could see that he was a cut above and integral to that Barcelona team, which is probably more well known for Messi and Iniesta. But yeah, Xavi was the engine room. It was the one that absolutely everything went through.
Yeah.
It's as much as the Messis of this world and the Ronaldos of this world really expressed themselves in that creativity. Xavi just brought everything together, and the responsibility that he had in a team that was all about getting the ball down, getting it played through the midfield, absolutely everything going through him. The way in which he did that and the quality in which he did that every single year. As an old-fashioned centre half, I was just sort of in awe of how someone could actually do that.
I have to say, I know how it feels to be an old-fashioned centre half. So yeah, I'm with you. He's a class act, absolute class act. Good show. Yeah. Okay, favourite team ever and why?
Oh, I mean, it probably like a lot of young Scottish guys around about the late 70s and 80s, that you always looked at Liverpool for obvious reasons, with Dalglish, Souness, Hansen, Nicol, and it was a real purple patch, obviously. It was, particularly just at the tail end of Bob Paisley's reign and Joe Fagan and their European almost dominance. And it's a time where I just start to remember football. As sort of, a 7-8-year-old and remembering sort of watching it and just being in awe of what these guys created and how it really got me feeling inside and remember walking out, just kind of whether it be on the street or to the park with your Kenny Dalglish strip on and thinking that's who I kind of want to be. So to this day, I've always had a soft spot for Liverpool, and then of course just on the back of what I've been saying about Xavi and Iniesta and it's probably no surprise that I've got to look at Pep Guardiola side as well, which, as I say, it just brought a new dimension to football and something of which a legacy to this day still lives on.
I agree. I think it's not the first time that that Pep team's been mentioned on these interviews, and for good reason, for sure. But that Liverpool team, I remember as a kid. I remember actually not disliking Liverpool because they won everything. I had a kind of irrational dislike for them. But when I look back now and look at the technical quality, particularly the likes of Dalglish, Hansen, Lawrenson, Graham Souness, and the way that they played and the kind of intricate football that they played at times, which people think that the 80s was all about kick and run and just bomb it. People think about Charles Hughes, and coaches will just make glib statements about how poor the football was back then, but they do that in a kind of uninformed way, because if you look back and watch some of that football, it was incredible.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think it's almost the autonomy that the players had as well. And I look at players now. Yes, you have those creative players, but you don't see another Kenny Dalglish in the way that not only the way his brain moves, but the way in which he moved his body, the way he kind of really backed into people and worked people off the body. The telepathy that he had even with Ian Rush at the time. I mean, it's when you hear Ian Rush talking about it, you can just see why it really clicked. And it's not something that you see a great deal of, is actually a reliance on the chemistry of how different players use their strength for the sake of the team. Now it's a little bit more robotic. Focus much more on the tactical side of the games, but the autonomy in which they played and they used their strengths was just incredible.
I'm with you. We'll come back to that tactical versus kind of individual characteristics later on, I think. Okay, if you had a cup final with 22 of the greatest players in the world, and you had to choose for your team a manager to win that cup final, that one-off game, prepare the team, literally go in that week and prepare the team for a cup final to win the game, who would you choose? Any manager, past or present?
Well, I mean, I'm probably going to stick with the Liverpool theme on this one, Kev, because obviously Bob Paisley's record as the most successful Liverpool manager, which is an interesting choice actually when you look at the Peps, the Klopps and Mourinho's. But actually, the reason I go for someone like Bob Paisley is because I've read a lot about him, and he clearly was a very introverted character. And when you're an introverted character in a changing room that's got real big personalities, undoubtedly what you say and how you say it has quite simply got to just be the most logical thing at the right time. And whenever you hear players talking about Bob Paisley, he didn't say much, but basically when he spoke, you listened. So, but we're in a day and age now where managers have to be almost a bigger personality than the players. But actually back then, with the success and the reason that he won so many cup finals is not because what happened on cup final day. Number one, he knew a good player, he spotted a good player, and that was tactically, technically, physically, and he knew how to just get the best out of people in a very understated way. I think it's something that probably when people, when they talk about Liverpool, they're more about Shankly, they're maybe more about Dalglish, and but as I say, Bob Paisley was the most successful manager, but because he was an understated person, we don't necessarily shout about it as much as probably what we should do. So, and probably as I kind of look at myself and say, what kind of manager would have got the best out of me? And probably would have been the old-fashioned sort of in your ear hole, the sort of teacup flying and stuff. But actually, at the same time, clearly he was obviously much more methodical, and he thought through what he was saying before he said it. That it was hugely effective.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, I love that you've chosen him. I'm not sure he would come to me automatically when you're looking at a one-off game for me, but I love that you've chosen him because I think he's from a pit village in County Durham where a lot of my family are from. I was born in County Durham, although I grew up in Guernsey, and so, but my northeast football roots, I'm proud of, and I can, they kind of, I don't know how I can describe it, but it makes me feel proud. Anyone from the northeast being mentioned in this title, and I think, and I also just, any time I've seen footage of him, he had the warmest eyes. He was, a tough man, but a gentleman. But he had the warmest eyes. He seemed to smile with his eyes, and that would clearly get people on side. So great answer, pal. Great answer. And the first time anyone's mentioned Bob Paisley. Yeah. Okay, last question before we get into the main event. A little known fact about Dave Kennedy that very few people other than your nearest and dearest would know.
Probably one that when I moved to Jersey, I was in limbo for about 3 months till I got my development job, and I got a job cleaning swimming pools. And one of the first ever one was a well-known Premier League chairman who lives over here.
Really? That wouldn't be a former Sunderland chairman, would it?
I'm not going to confirm or deny. Jersey's a place of which we have a few chairmen, but
that's true. Yeah, it could be another one as well. Yeah.
And the reason why I'm not going to confirm or deny is that actually to get into the plant room, which is the mechanics of the swimming pool, to plug everything in, his plant room was actually underneath his swimming pool. And quite simply, I didn't know what I was doing, but I knew that I had to unplug something. And actually what happened was I unplugged the wrong one and basically emptied half his swimming pool underneath in his plant room, which is bad enough in itself that I was kind of walking about in about 4 feet of water. But he also used it as a bit of an office and also a bit of a room where he kept all his suits and stuff. So I caused in excess of about £8,000 damage, actually.
And so were your services retained then?
So as it was, I've since come to meet him and know him quite well.
Yeah.
But never once have I mentioned it. And and to answer your question, I lasted another 2 weeks and I kind of thought, this isn't for me. I'll go before I go fire.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like it would be the type of job I'd be any good at either, pal. So, but nice one, good. Okay, let's get into it. So to start off with, I want to talk to you. You currently work in sports development in Jersey. Is that right? Yeah. Before you take up the post as CEO of the JFA. So I want to ask you a little bit about what I would call the PlayStation generation, and what sort of challenges do you think we all face as the people who listen to this? Many are coaches or are involved in coaching and kids development particularly. And I think we all face challenges from this kind of social and psych corners when it comes to working with young people today. It's a little bit more complex in terms of the social and psych corners. How do you what's your kind of view on that, and how would you kind of transfer that into probably roles in the future?
Yeah, I mean, I'd probably answer that, Kev. I'll look right back at the very start, which was maybe about 30 odd years ago, when we didn't really need sports development back then, but all of a sudden, even before PlayStations, that what was acceptable in society became unacceptable very, very quickly. And I talk about probably, and I'll sound like a dinosaur, but you'll relate to this, is about how we grew up, which was very much on the street, and underneath the street lamps, or in the local park, and you were out to all hours at night, and many memories of going and fetching the ball from the next door neighbour's garden, and it was just common practice back then.
Yeah.
But it seemed to be happening overnight. All of a sudden, there was no ball game signs in all the housing estates just cropped up, because tolerance levels for young people just seemed to just grow and grow and grow, and probably ultimately we were responsible for trying to squeeze a problem indoors. And so it's probably no surprise that the PlayStation generation just followed that. And I think that in sports development, we've always had to be reactive to societal changes, and actually, I think that some sports were better than others. And to be fair to football, it's probably one of the better examples where they recognised that what we had to do with our young people is provide programmes that almost replicated street games.
Yeah.
We knew that if we were going to continue to develop young players, well, actually, a lot of that foundation of which they were built on were born from free play just the long hours of just kicking the ball back and forward on the street. So, I even remember playing things like 15-a-side Rangers versus Celtic at primary school. But, you were constantly involved in the game. And so we probably had to react to that. And the way we did it was probably more professionalise it. And that way we set up different soccer centres, and we employed coaches to take more kids and, try to make it much more structured to get them out of the PlayStation. But I think undoubtedly the consequence of that generation is that I speaking on my experience in Scotland, is that I think we missed out on a generation or two of players, and I think undoubtedly, whilst it's not the only reason, I think that our club scene and the national team suffered greatly because of that. So I think the challenge is we've always had to be reactive. The challenge now is that society has again changed, and that people are busier. Yeah. People volunteer less. I think that in the past that we have been more community orientated, and it's certainly something I still see living on an island, which I'm sure you'll know very well, Kev. But in reality, people just don't have the time. And football in particular, again, is a victim of that. That since the late 70s to where we are now, numbers have always fallen in the structured side of the games, and even now, the format of training on a Tuesday, training on a Thursday, playing on a Saturday, it doesn't fit in for a lot of modern families.
Yes, I agree.
So the task at hand really for, and I've used football as an example, but for all sports, is to ensure that what we're offering meets the needs of society. Mm-hmm. And that certainly in recent years we're much more aware of the barriers. We don't fully understand them, but we're much more aware of the barriers, cost probably being one of them. I think that certainly in the last 3 years there's been a huge influx and an awareness of mental health. We know that we just got to look at the statistics around about childhood obesity, that 1 in 3 now is overweight or obese in the UK, and back in the 70s that was 1 in 8. So whatever we're doing, Kev, we're not doing enough of it, because that's the data speaks for itself. We don't have an active nation. So I think that the emphasis now on sports development is probably moved more from sport and into physical activity development, because ultimately what will happen is that physical activity underpins sport and sport development. And in the past, we've always kind of jumped straight to sport development and tried to put on programs that will entice the next generation of football players or hockey players or rugby players. But actually, it's much more about just getting them off the sofas and almost doing physical activity by stealth. What I mean by that is, open ourselves up to different sports that in the past people wouldn't have been contemplating. I think things like dodgeball is extremely popular now. Handball has been extremely popular in Europe. And from a football context, we even kind of look at things like futsal now as an example now. Something you're all very well aware of over in Spain. But, it's something that just is starting now to really sort of gain a bit of traction in the UK. It's not something that we have here in Jersey, and it'll be sort of my plans for the FA. So we've kind of got to try to stay ahead of the curve of societal challenges that is ultimately we're not engaging the amount of people that we should be. And that is a challenge, as I say, because there are so many factors that in the past there wasn't.
Yeah, I'm with you. Okay, well, it's a really interesting topic, and we could talk. The whole call could go through this, because, I mean, for me, living in Spain, I have a theory that Spain produces so many technical footballers because they're all playing outside. I mean, the weather has an impact, but there's so many facilities, so many public facilities. You can go to a small village with a population of 200 or 300, and they'll have a 3/4 size 3G that all of the kids will be out playing, or they'll have a salad court or whatever. And I have a theory that here that the raw materials are, and the golden generation, that kind of golden years, should we call them? Sorry, not the golden generation. Golden years of kind of technical development happen almost by accident here, because They just, as you said before, the 15 versus 15s, you see them on the urbanisations, in the town centres, on the beaches, and it'll be all in. There'll be 6-year-olds playing against 12-year-olds, and they'll all be at it. And then when they eventually get to clubs here, they start to work on tactical stuff, because the technical stuff is pretty much done. And I don't mean it's ever done, but that is, it's such a different scenario. And the weather, as I say, has a huge impact, but there's also a lack of health and safety. There's no ball signs around here, I can tell you that much. And so maybe Spain's 20 years, 30 years behind the UK in that respect, because there's less regulation and control. That means that they still have a better production line. What they do after that, my opinion, is that perhaps Spain is actually behind the UK now, because of coach education and what have you. But and the other thing I wanted to say on that was, I think a lot of coaches use some of the trends that you've highlighted there as excuses. Because if everyone bemoans the fact that there's no street soccer culture and street football culture anymore, there's no more street footballers. Well, it's our job as coaches to find a solution, start to produce some. And of course, that means that the people who work in sports development, who work in the schools as teachers, the parents, everyone has a responsibility to contribute to that. But I'm not, I hear it too many times that, we don't get street footballers to turn up to our sessions anymore. Well, you've got to think on your feet. That's my response to them. Yeah,
no, definitely, Kev. I mean, there's a number of things in there. Facilities being one of them. Obviously, coming from Scotland, there was a real under-investment in facilities. And again, we were very late to the party, and it's only in the last 10 years that we've seen some real investment into indoor full-sized pitches across Scotland now, because ultimately you have to adapt and you have to move on. But no, certainly I couldn't agree more with you. I actually think that the excuse that you talk about for coaches is that they don't know what good looks like. What does that actually look like in practice? Some of the stuff that we're talking about what does a physically literate young footballer look like? Well, it's someone that can, jump, kick, head the ball properly. And it's one that I could walk into a school that's just up the road, and I could look at a kid and go, that kid's physically literate.
Absolutely.
And a good chance, to be fair, that they've probably been taking part in a lot of sports. They've been fortunate enough that their parents or their guardians have been supporting them to do that. So it is about creating those opportunities, because, as I say, those traits and those fundamental movements that we developed in the streets many years ago, you've just got to find ways of replicating that. And certainly it's something that I'm passionate about here in Jersey. It's something that we've developed in the last probably about 5 years as a programme of physical literacy for young people. Very much about, we're challenging the PE curriculum and asking, what, is it actually fit for purpose just now? Should it be a much more fundamental movement-based PE curriculum? Because ultimately, if we want kids to have the confidence and then going to have the knowledge about wanting to take part in physical activity and sport, then actually they have to have the fundamental movements to be able to do that. And there's no better way to gain in confidence, actually, if you're good at something. What we do is that we push them straight into the sports and say, right, first of all, in a class of 25 here, the differentiation across that class of 25 will be enormous. But here we are, but just put them all in the same football lesson and think that they're going to enjoy it. And the first experience of the game is a very, very unenjoyable one. And that's them, they're gone. You never ever get them back. So, let's build that base. Let's give them the tools that then, once they grow, once they develop, once they're through that golden age of learning, that actually they're then start to think a little bit about more sport-specific stuff. But we're obsessed by getting kids into sport as early as possible and thinking that that's the best thing for them.
Yeah, and specialising in that sport specifically, or focusing too much on the technical or tactical aspects of that sport. Brilliant. It's great stuff on physical literacy. Really, really.
Yeah.
Okay, pal. We're gonna touch on a little bit more. Well, certainly sports development and into player development in a bit. But I want to take it back to your background. So before you moved to Jersey, can you just give us a bit of an overview of what David Kennedy experienced in the game before you arrived in Jersey and started working in sports administration, coaching, and you'd already done coaching and moving on to the ivory towers before TNT.
I said, first of all, I was a schoolboy at Coventry City Care when I was 14. That was 1986. That would be, which was actually the year just before the one FA Cup, if I remember.
John Sillett and George Kellett.
And he was a larger than life character, and he was brilliant. And I think my experience at Coventry City was probably replicated all through my career in that I saw some of the really good stuff of what it could be like to be a footballer, but also saw the other side. And it's a side that ultimately I just couldn't get to grips with, and probably resulted me in having a very, very modest career at best. And what I mean by that is that, went down to Coventry City, and you were actually at that time, even the reserves were mixed in with some of the 13, 14-year-olds. That was sort of common practice at the time, and you were kind of just shoved in, so on you go, try and deal with that. And it was brilliant. Wow. And I can remember actually marking Cyril Regis, of all people. He was coming back from injury, and it's just as a skinny little Scottish lad to be doing that. It was almost surreal.
And what age were you then? 15?
13.
13.
Yeah, and I was. You can imagine. I was an absolute beanpole. But I met some real characters to this day that I'll always remember of some of the little things that they did. So Steve Agruzovic was a goalkeeper, Big Oggy, and he made sure that whatever youngster came into what was the Sky Blue Centre, which was the training ground at the time. He came over and he shook their hand, and he wanted to know a little bit about you, and it was just for someone who had just sort of turned up on day one to have this famous first team goalkeeper who was massive coming over and saying, tell yourself, and an added bonus to that is that actually Gordon Banks was the goalkeeping coach at the time.
Wow.
But you just think, wow, this was just incredible, and I always remember my going down with me, and he was very much in awe. I mean, I didn't know a great deal about Gordon Banks at 13, but it was just incredible. So it was a great side, but probably more tainted in the fact that I was a bit of a home bird. I was an introverted character very much back then, and it was a 6-hour train journey. Felt really homesick, and probably the environment. I struggle with the environment, and it is something to this day that I'm really passionate about, is creating the right environment for young people, and and just being homesick was difficult. But I'm talking fondly about the Steve Agruzovic and Brian Colcline, who was the manager, the captain at the time. On the other side, there were some other guys, and a real letdown for me was David Speedy, who was a Scottish international.
I've heard awful stories about Speedy, yeah.
Well, I mean, I'll keep it clean because we're on a podcast, Kev, but it was actually the one that I was really looking forward to because he was Scottish international. To beat one. And we were basically, I always remember, we were just out, it was a really awful day, and we were warming up behind the goals, and the first team basically came jogging over to us, and David Speedy was with him. And I always remember he picked up a big ball of mud and just threw it at us all, and then gave us the fingers, ran off, and I thought, this is my first sort of experience of this guy. And he came in and he just wanted nothing at all to do with us. And to this day, I just thought, and as you say, I have heard lots of stories about him, and if that's the type of character he was. So it kind of gave me an insight into football. It's got some amazing characters, and I've met more of them than I've met more of the David Speedies over the year. But I say it didn't work out at Coventry, mainly because I was homesick, and I was just desperate to get back. And I came back up to Scotland, and then I played for about 3 months actually in my local club, Alloa. But I was a little bit disillusioned with football at the time, and I just went back to playing in my boys' club, and that was for about 3 years. And I was really enjoying my football, and it was an interesting one that sort of period between the ages of 16 and 19. I played with a local boys' club, a very successful local boys' club. There wasn't a great deal of coaching involved. It was just go and express yourself, and we're a good bunch of lads. And unknown to me, actually, Dunfermline had been watching me for about 3 months, and then came in and offered me a contract, which was totally unexpected because my sort of dream of becoming a professional football player had long since passed. In my Coventry, probably kind of thought to myself, you know what, that'll do. I've had a little bit of experience for it. But as it was great, and it was a very proud moment. And for to go and sing for them, and they saw me actually at a cup final. They approached me after the cup final with my manager, and the next day I found myself at the East End Park, which is Dunfermline Stadium, and signing. It was a really proud moment, and really mainly because I wasn't expecting it, Kev. And then at that sort of, that was at the end of the season, so I reported for day one for pre-season training. And again, this is when I talk about the good and the not so good. So I walked into the back of East End Park where we were training, or we were to get the minibus to go to training. And there was nobody on the door to meet you. You just literally walked in this massive stadium. And you know, I'm not sure where I'm going. Still got this shy nature about me. And the first team dressing room was straight ahead. So I thought, right, I'll just walk straight into the first team dressing room and kind of see how I got on. Opened the door. And sure enough, there was about 20 first team guys in there, and as you can imagine, the crack was flying about. It was chaos. There was music going, and nobody came over to say hello to me, right? And it was like tumbleweed for me. And I was standing there and I'm looking about, and I'm going, please just ground just open up and swallow me. So I had a really, really awkward 10 minutes there until actually the kit guy came in and went, "You're meant to be next door with the reserves." So I was like, well, at least he's dragged me and he's come into he's took me into where I was meant to be. And that was equally as awkward because we were all on sort of day one, and I think quite a few of us had a similar experience.
Yeah.
So, but, I thoroughly enjoyed my time. I was there for a season at Dunfermline. Probably had a handful of first team appearances, which was great. I was fortunate enough to play alongside some really good pros. I mean, at that time, Jackie McNamara, who's Scottish internationalist, he was right back with Dunfermline at the time. And so it was a real eye opener for me in terms of Scottish League football. Which, to be honest, I played most of the season in the reserves. I think the reason I always sort of touch on that story about walking into the first team changing room is that I remember many years later, I took a young lad from Jersey over to Southampton to sign. So a young Jack Boyle, who I know that you'll be well aware of. And
I am indeed. I've got mainly bad memories about him, to be honest. But he's a great player, as Jack, and been a terrific player for Jersey. For sure.
Yeah, I mean, Jack had just had a very good season and had just signed off with a great win against Guernsey, which I'm sure we'll come on to shortly. I took him over to Southampton to sign, and what happened was we arrived at the airport, and Southampton actually employed a guy. He was a really old guy, he must have been in his 70s, and he was the driver to come and get you and to take you into training.
Yeah.
But his job, whether it was a young player or an experienced professional that was signing for millions and millions of pounds, his job was to make them feel $1 million. Right? So he wasn't just driving. And I always remember, I was in the car, Jack was in the back and I was in the front. And all this guy did was tell Jack how everybody's been talking about him, how he's got an amazing career in front of him, how the manager really rates him, and already here you're going to be an outside right that's just got this, that, and the next thing. And Jack walked out of the car at the training ground feeling absolutely fantastic. And I kind of thought at the time, I thought that's what I needed at Dunfermline. Just someone come and just say, you know what, heard good things about you, and just create that environment where you get onto the training ground and you go, right, I mean, it's
not being soft, is it? It's just sensible. It's just sensible to bring young players in and give them the opportunity to be themselves, so that you get to find out what they're all about. If they never feel comfortable enough to be themselves, then you're never going to find out, are you? And whatever you've done to get them there in the first place will probably be wasted.
Absolutely. I mean, it's an interesting one because a lot of what I'm saying, and I've kind of got a similar experience because I went from Dunfermline to Livingston, and again, probably injury marred my career. Again, I had a handful of first team appearances.
Yeah.
But the sort of the not so good side of football is something that some players talk about fondly. So see when you hear David Beckham and the Nevilles talking about Man United, what it was like to be an apprentice at Man United, and some of the things that they had to do. And Phil Neville, I remember a documentary saying, probably would be classed as abuse in this day and age.
Yeah, I remember.
But character building, and I can't deny that. And probably it was just because of my character, my nature, that I felt uncomfortable in those situations. As I say, I was an introverted character at the same time. So it's probably no surprise that for those boys that really went on to do well in their career, and it's because they were able to cope with that. They probably had more resilience to that. It's really funny. It's really funny you mention this because as a kid who grew up in Guernsey, went to
public school in Guernsey, albeit because I was bright enough to pass my 11 plus. I don't know how. When I went to England and started playing at a reasonable level, going in to share changing rooms with players who played a couple hundred league games, or they were very seasoned top level non-league players, it was a horrible environment at times. I mean they were horrible, literally. It was just dog eat dog, and I was told by numerous people, listen, you could be gone next week, type of thing, and I could be gone next week as well. And I think for kids who probably, I suspect I may well have been a similar character to you, Dave. Whilst I've got plenty of confidence now, as a young kid, I certainly didn't, and I grew up in a sheltered, very happy environment. Never been exposed to a lot of the stuff that these lads have been, and I do look back on it fondly. I have to say it was the making of many respects. Doesn't mean that I condone some of the stuff that went on. Doesn't mean that I think it would be appropriate for these days. But in terms of the that phrase character building, it made me, and my balls grew, and I probably always had a little bit of arsehole in me somewhere anyway. Fight. But there wasn't as much of it, when growing up in Guernsey as there was, so I've been there for 6 months, a year, and I'd learned.
Always felt as a young player as well, Kev, that coming from Scotland, that always felt Glaswegians had this much more self-assurance about them. But this talking, this Gallus as they call it in Scotland, that the bit of the swagger, and I always wanted to be that person. And they were the sort of guys in the changing room. They dominated the changing rooms, and they took that self-confidence out onto the pitch.
We always found that Jersey teams had that when I was a young player in Guernsey and beyond. We always thought the Jersey teams had that, probably because it's full of Glaswegians. But there you go.
But interestingly, just to flipping that on its side, I always felt that Guernsey had that bigger chip on their shoulder, and as a result, you always knew you were going to get 110%. So you had to, if you were going to have that swagger about you. And I remember giving many team talks and saying we're actually going to have to match them because they know they're just going to go out and fight for their lives. No, absolutely. It certainly, it kind of, it backs to the walls kind of mentality, because you feel like everyone from Jersey comes across and looks down at you a little bit. It gives you that little bit more impetus. And I think that the going back to the sort of self-assurance side of things, it's something that certainly I got as semi-professional, and I thoroughly enjoyed my semi-professional career. I had probably the best times of my life, to be all honest, and maybe that's because the pressure was off slightly, and it was much more community focused. And I talk about this environment that people were just pleased that you were playing for their club, and that was great. But I think it was only till I really started getting into coaching, and I always remember on my UEFA B licence that I went down. And by this time I'd been working hard to just get to that level in the first place that I felt I was ready for a UEFA B, Kev. And there was, 2 Scottish internationalists on it. And on day one, you were asked to deliver sort of small-sided practice. And I think...
Is it Largs?
Largs, Largs, Scottish Institute of Sport. And so I was sort of thrown in at the deep end, and I was to deliver 3v2s, which I had done many times before. It was something I'd done in previous coach ed courses, more than comfortably do that. And I went in and I thought I smashed it. I was then followed by the Scottish internationalist, who I was actually sharing a room with at the time, who was this self-assured character that everybody was kind of, on the course was quite very much in awe of. And he never had a clue with it, Kev. Didn't know if he hadn't. It obviously made that transition from being into playing but into coaching, but methodically there had been nothing sort of backing all of that up. He just thought, well, actually, I'll use my experience of the coaches that I've had over the years, my experience of playing in certain situations. But in reality, it was a very, very different skill. So this, Glaswegian self-assurance, all of a sudden, I saw vulnerability in it. And it was that vulnerability that actually made me grow. And for the rest of the course, I thoroughly enjoyed it. And it was almost kind of like, it was much more of a making of me as a coach, to know that actually, if this is where some of these self-assured guys are at, and they've had a good professional career, but here's me, I worked my socks off to get to where I am. I'm now starting to see the fruits of that. And I took that on for the rest of my coaching career.
Brilliant. It's a great observation. I mean, you hear when the various FAs, the Welsh FA, the Irish FA, Scottish FA, whatever, they'll put out information about an ex-pro, a high-profile ex-pro taking the course, and the honesty that these days and the humility that they demonstrate is great.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have had it 20, 30 years ago, but you've got these. I can't remember. I think John Terry and Gerard have both mentioned it, that the first time that they were tasked with leading a session with decent footballers. Yeah. It's like being a fish out of water. They knew exactly what to do if someone kicked the ball in, Wembley or Stamford Bridge or Anfield. But if it's pissing down with rain and there's 3 men and a dog watching your training session, but you've got 24 eyes or 28 eyes or whatever, all on you, expecting you to deliver some quality and provide them with guidance on a footballing front. Said it was something completely different. Yeah, I feel you. I hear what you're saying.
And if they're really serious about it, Kev, about actually want to reach the top level, I think all your top level managers have been on that journey. That I don't think there's necessarily this just sort of jumping in from the playing into the coaching career. And I think that I look at someone like Sean Dyche, manager I've got a huge amount of respect for, because yes, he went from playing into coaching, but actually I remember reading about him that he'd done a lot of leadership courses, a lot of business management courses, and actually, because he's gone, well, how could you expect a player to stop his career one day, then almost manage a multi-million pound business the next day? Who prepares you for that? And I always remember I'd been down to my A licence in, it's been a lot, probably 1990, that would have been. 1999, sorry. And I was coaching at my local club, Alloa, in the under-19s, and I took under-19s down to be the runners on the course, which was brilliant for them, because it was the professional course. It was all the ex-pros that were on it, or some of them.
Brilliant. They got good exposure,
Great, and again, looking at the good side of things, there were some guys who came over and even gave the guys a few bob for coming down and helping them out with their sessions. But I'll always remember that Richard Gough was being assessed on his A licence, and the tutor at the time was Archie Knox, who was the Rangers assistant manager. So Richard Gough was to shape us all up 11v11. I was actually playing centre half, and the young boys were doing most of the running. I was just standing at the back. But without a word of a lie, Richard Gough's phone went off in the middle of his A licence assessment, right? And Archie Knox let him take the phone call, and I'm thinking the credibility that had for the course just went down the toilet for me, as someone who was inspiring to get to that top level.
Wow,
that's what the practice that you're allowed to demonstrate on the elite course, if you like. But probably more importantly, it told me something about Richard Gough as well, and it came out of that, and I think that he got his first ever managerial job and last ever managerial job at Livingston, of all places. And he lasted, I think it was about 3 months, and he was gone. And he had no time. I always remember he had no time for the lads on the course. It was just all about him. And I thought, he's going to go into a changing room in his first managerial job, and all he's going to say to his players is, "When I played, this is how I did it."
Absolutely.
And as well as I do, Kev. Yeah, sorry, but what you did as a player was one thing. You're here for me now, not for you. And it was no surprise.
That credibility carries you probably in front of people and disappears after about 10 seconds. You open and you go.
Yeah, definitely.
It's a brilliant story, that, Dave. Absolutely class story. What a brilliant example. Okay, so Dunfermline, Livingston, UEFA B, UEFA A, and then. So you'd obviously done a combination of stuff. You worked for the Scottish Football Association as well for a while, I believe. So you'd done, a really, really kind of multi-layered kind of experience before you came to Jersey. So let's talk a little bit about the Channel Islands. What was your experience? How did you find coming to Jersey in the first instance, both in terms of living just quickly and then from a football perspective?
I mean, living, Kev. Within half an hour of landing in Jersey for a holiday, I fell in love with the place. Obviously, the weather was much better than what I had been in Scotland. But genuinely, it was the friendliness of the people. I think that, that's probably similar in a lot of islands. Guernsey the same, even some of the Scottish islands that I'd visit. There's a real feel of community, and I actually really, really liked that. So it was probably no surprise that I ended up over here. Football side of things, in all honesty, it was a bit of a culture shock for me. And what I mean by that, and that was not to be disrespectful, it was actually because coming from Scotland, where football is the be-all and end-all, then to come to somewhere else that it wasn't, was the culture shock for me. I mean, basically what happens over here is that the football season finishes and the cricket season kicks in. You know, the nets come down and the stumps go up. And actually, for a lot of the time, it's the same guys who say play football one season and they come and do cricket. And I couldn't understand that, because, you know, where I come from, as soon as the football season finishes, basically you're like a bear with a sore head until such times as the football season kicks back in again. And if you're lucky, you can go for a holiday for a couple of weeks, but that's it. You're just desperate for the season to kick back in. But football wasn't the be-all and end-all. And actually, there's a positive in that, because there's a much more active island. You know, there's a lot of sports, a lot of opportunities on the island. Facilities were fantastic for a lot of different sports. So probably no surprise that, as I say, football wasn't the be-all and end-all. But nonetheless, it struck me straight away where it was a very good environment to develop young players. First of all, I mean, I can remember getting off the plane and getting on the bus, and we'd passed the public pitches, and they all had their nets up. And they keep them up through the football season.
No one's going to come along and half-inch them.
Yeah, and I'm going, what's going on?
Must be a nice place.
And it's like, when people come over to visit me, they kind of go, someone's left the nets up. That's what happens. It's normal practice over here. So, you know, we encourage that. But secondly, the facilities at the local clubs, they're very much based around about communities. They all have a good clubhouse. A lot of them have a bar in there. There is a good sense of community, and I really like that. And I think that, you know, my initial perception was that it was a good level of amateur football, and it's probably what you would expect from an environment where there is a pathway in place. Of course there is, of which, you know, if you do well here, you can get flown to the UK, and you can probably, you know, if you're good enough, you'll get a senior contract. And, you know, the pathways in place through the Centre of Excellencies from Jersey and Guernsey, and, you know, they do really well, and they link well with a lot of the English clubs.
But Jersey, you know, this is something I have it doesn't sit completely comfortably with me. Although we've had Chris Tardif and, you know, young Alex Scott's just gone across, and obviously Lettis and the like in the past, Zico a little bit. For me, in the last 10, 15 years, Jersey's the island out of the two that's producing players that turn into professional game. And that's a bit frustrating for me as a Guernsey man. But from your side of things, you must be getting something right.
Oh, definitely, you know, and there's a lot of work goes into our Centre of Excellence over here. And it's very much about creating an environment. I think we invest heavily in coach education over here. I think that the difficulty that was recognised 10, 15 years ago, as you say, it's about exposing them to that environment and getting off island as much as possible. And, you know, if I look at the programme at our Centre of Excellence just now, Kevin, I mean, it's incredible. I mean, this season they've been up to Liverpool, you know, and they've been playing Liverpool. They played Juventus. You know, it's just teams that you just think, wow, it shouldn't even be on a radar. And whilst there's a bit of glamour attached to that, the spin-off to that, and what I have seen is that whenever we've actually played much more at the sort of the hard end stuff, which is basically the county cups, you know, so you're going over and you're playing against other counties, if you like. Yeah. In the past, Jersey players have always taken about half an hour just to evaluate the opposition, because, as you said, you were one of them yourself, I'm sure. You're a nice Jersey lad, and you know, all of a sudden you were coming into a very different environment where actually this game meant absolutely everything to these kids.
Well, the other thing is that they're used to playing against people they know week in, week out, and when you go and play against players you don't know, you don't know how to work them out. This is one of the biggest challenges.
And you know, and it's a question I was always asking some of the guys. You know, how often do you actually wake up with a fire in the belly? You know, and kind of think, right, big game today, you know, and then because of the familiarity, you're always at a disadvantage on a small island. So, you know, undoubtedly there's been a lot of investment in our Centre of Excellence to make sure that the kids were getting that exposure to not only good opposition, but it prepared them much better. So when it comes to, you know, the county cups and such like that, we're able to get at people much quicker. Yeah. I think probably we are still at a lot of disadvantage, but just because our kids just from the environment they're brought up in that they're nice kids over here, you know. And I go back to it, it's not the be all and end all, and you know, it's probably very rare that you come across a player that actually this means everything to them. They have to make sure that they will do what it takes to win a game of football. It's just, you know, it's their DNA. They're not brought up that way. Whereas in Scotland, that, you know, it's fight or flight when it comes to football. Football could be a lifeline for a lot of kids, and that's why as they'll go and they'll you know.
And there's less senior influence, because I mean, if I think back and my memories of, you know, football in the 80s, for example, and Guernsey versus Jersey, Muratti football and Uptons and stuff like that, every Jersey side was full of jocks and full of Scousers, and that influence must have had an influence on the local, both the seniors and the juniors who were coming through the ranks, and that kind of always felt to me like it gave Jersey a bit of an edge psychologically, because that horrible, you know, Robbie Granny for 3 points type mentality, certainly, as you say, it's not innate in Channel Islanders, that's for sure. I felt that a slight inferiority as a Guernseyman going through that period of time when I was across.
And I think the thing that we've got to be proud of, Kev, is that influx isn't there as much. As many.
That's my point.
So you really have to develop from within, and actually you're now working with literally Jersey kids, and you're having to ensure that, you know, that DNA that you're coaching within, it has to have that element of winning in it. You know, and to win a game of football, and you know, and it's something that in Scotland we probably start with, and then all the technical stuff comes at the end of it. But actually over here we're really good at, you know, developing the technical and tactical and you know, the movement skills and everything. But actually, you know, we're now recognising that the opportunity we had with the Scots and the Scousers and everybody coming over, it brought that winning element to it a little bit more. It focused a little bit more on that, and that's a bit now that we've introduced by quite simply the pathways that were made to some of the senior clubs. Good
stuff. Okay, so let's move on to Muratti football then. How what did it feel like coming to Muratti football for the first time, and how did you compare it with your experiences in the game on the mainland?
I mean, Kevin, we both know that they're great occasions. They're absolutely great occasions. Before I come to the Jersey Guernsey thing, I think one of my first experiences with Muratti football was actually in the semi-final. Now, for anybody who doesn't know Alderney, it's like any other really small island. I don't know what the population is, maybe a couple
2,000, I think.
Yeah. And you fly over to this little remote island, 2,000 population, as I say. But actually, it kind of feels like the 2,000 population come along and support their football team for this one-off game. And it's a surreal setting. You know, it's kind of in a dip, overshadowed by sort of, you know, fortresses and hillsides and the build up to kick off. You just feel it just starting to have that groundswell of people that's turned up. There's a good bit of alcohol involved. And it's I think they have, is it one police officer that they've got over there, and that's his busiest day of the year. But you know, and it's that was my sort of first experience of it, of Muratti football, and that you had to get through that game before you ended up playing Guernsey in the final. So and actually back in those days, they were really quite cute as well, because they always made sure that the park was an absolute mess. If you were wanting to try to beat them at football, good luck with you, you know. And ultimately, what you ended up doing was just kind of a bit of fight football, back to front, just get the ball out wide, get in the box. But as occasions, it was surreal, and then for this being my first experience of it, I just thought this is just something I've not experienced before. And obviously, you then get to the Muratti final, which was against you guys, and I always preferred going over to Guernsey. I think, you know, and you know, for anybody who doesn't know, the rivalry very much sort of Scottish, English, Rangers, Celtic, you name it, and it's obviously Jersey Guernsey, and it always felt as because of the smaller island and probably the chip on the shoulder, the Guernsey community really kind of got behind the guys, and they made an occasion of it. You know, there was always, you know, the pre-match stuff. We'd arrive at the ground an hour before kick-off, and the pipe band would be in full swing. There'd be all sorts of different things going on. But the biggest thing for me, the crowd were already in the ground at that time. You know, you just thought, wow, we're in a game here. You know, this is the support of these guys are getting today. And you know, so which actually, from someone that was partial to the odd sort of motivational team talk, it kind of played right into my bag, really, because, you know, you just kind of went, this is what you're up against, guys. Let's just go out, talk it back to them, and you know, and it was, I mean, I was fortunate enough that we won 3 out of 3, and albeit 2 of them were on penalties before you say it. It's I genuinely, now that I'm in the chief exec post, I'm coming to the chief exec post, it's going to be an interesting situation for me to be in, that I'm now more on the administration side of these things, and one of the things that I want to ensure is that they are good events. You know, and Guernsey are really good at that. Jersey's good as well, but I just think that you know, Guernsey, it's their big day, and you know, if they win it, oh wow, it's you know, fair play to them. But I say I was quite lucky in that way.
Mate, yeah. Well, look, I was on the losing side for a couple of them, and it was very hard for me to take that. I don't really deal in regrets, there's very little I get bitter about in life, but I'm very bitter about that one in 2008. It was my last competitive game really as a player, and it meant so much for me to wear the shirt when I went back to the island, and it really rankles with me that I don't have a winner's medal as a player. But yeah, I mean, brilliant occasions. So you certainly were successful, pal, no doubt about it.
You know, genuinely, Kev, I think that what was really good as well is that I always got on well with the Guernsey managers, and likewise, you know, and Steve Ogier was brilliant, and I think that was because that the pressure on you to win, and you'll know it fine well as a manager yourself, it's massive. You know, you feel that expectation of the island, don't you? And it's quite a lonely position. You know, it can be, and I remember that there was that particular game at your last one when it went to penalties, and I remember going over to Steve before the penalties, and I just thought, well, you and I just go for a pint, because what will be will be. You know, the pressure is just, it's incredible. So when you get over the line, particularly in your first one, you want to get that first one over the belt. It's a huge relief.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm with you on that lonely. It is quite a lonely position. I think being a manager and a coach in general, you have to have a thick skin, you know, wherever you are. But over there, I remember getting various messages from people trying to explain to me how important it was, and they didn't need to explain to me, because you know, from a very young age, Muratti football had been part of my annual calendar, and I was counting down the nights as a kid going to watch it, let alone as a player, or as a manager. So, but yeah, and you know, with Craig and the likes of yourself and what have you, and I've had it in other sports as well. You know, Jersey and Guernsey, there's a very intense rivalry, and probably is softening a little bit as modern life kind of kicks in. But you know, even when it was horrible on the pitch, it was never horrible off it between ever. Wherever we were in the world, whether it's Island Games up in Orland, or you know, or in Jersey or Guernsey or the UK or wherever it was, it didn't matter. There was always a healthy respect, and some of my, you know, some really good friends of mine, you know, I've shared a pitch with, and they've won red, I've won green. So yeah, I'd agree with you. Important stuff for me. It's still the most special game in the world to me, without a doubt, and always will be. So let's move on to future plans for the JFA then. So you're going into the CEO role before too long. Big responsibility. I think it's fair to say, I'll try and be diplomatic about it, but there's been a lot of criticism angled at the JFA over the last few years. Some of it coming from the Guernsey side of things. You talk about the Muratti Day as an example, and the administration and setup and organisation, the facilities and all that stuff, and as well as the fact that players haven't been getting the opportunities, perhaps in terms of competitive football, that you know, the likes of Jack Boyle could have done with it. You know, in his probably best years as an adult footballer. What do you see as the main challenges, and you know, do you see you know, the future being, you know, seeing major change, or is it just going to be a, you know, steady evolution?
I think it's a difficult question until such times that I'm in, Kev. I mean, what I would say is that I'm probably starting in a better place than any of the predecessors that I know since my 15 years in Jersey. And certainly a new chief exec come in or a new president is voted in, undoubtedly the first question is, what are you going to do about your senior games programme? And actually, the evolution of the Jersey Bulls this year has undoubtedly went a long way to sort of solving that problem, because like Guernsey, we now have a team in the English League, and it's hugely popular. It's brought new people into the game. I'll go for a pint before the games, and I'll see people that I normally wouldn't see at Jersey games.
Brilliant. That's great. I love to see football attracting new fans, because it needs it.
Yeah, and I think that what will be, and undoubtedly we'll support them to achieve their ambitions, whatever those ambitions are. But I think that sitting alongside that, we've obviously got our own island team as well, and who are currently doing very well in the Interleague Systems Cup, which if they win that, and obviously both islands have had a shot at winning that, it's a great opportunity to represent England in an amateur.
I think that's just one point I'd make. I mean, before Jersey Bulls and before GFC, for me, my opinion is that for Step 7 football in the UK, Jersey and Guernsey's leagues were the best. They won in consecutive years, I think, didn't they? Or 2 and 3 years, and represented England. And I think for me, below semi-professional football, they were the best two leagues, and were as good as some of the lower semi-professional leagues themselves. So that was my opinion. Still didn't mean that it was, go back to echo some of your comments before about it wasn't as important football in the Channel Islands as it was to people, on the mainland, and it really felt like that when I went back. But I just wanted to put that in there, because it gives people who don't know Channel Island football a bit of an understanding of the kind of level of the
Absolutely, yeah. And I think that certainly with the Guernsey FC thing, and from my own personal experience of seeing it with the Bulls over here, I genuinely think that it's something that people have been waiting on, Kev. And I say there's those new people that I see at the games, and I think ultimately that's because what is brought to the Channel Islands is what I call real football, and it's the football that you and I have just been talking about for a while. It's that football that involves that passion, that involves that different environment where you are getting the butterflies in the stomach. You don't know what you're going to. You know that you're going to have to adapt the way you play, the way you think, and it's that brings out a totally different philosophy for a lot of people and their views towards football. And I now go to Springfield and there's a crowd singing. I mean that was unheard of unless it was but now to see that on a weekly basis is great. And ultimately it's because they're on the same ladder, if you like, as Man United, Liverpool, albeit they're on the bottom rung of it. But they're on the same ladder. And, what will be over the next few years. And as I say, I think that, undoubtedly they're doing a lot of that job for providing for the better players.
Yeah. Well, I think you only have to look at the second year of GFC's existence. FA Vase semi-final, I think 4,500. That was the home crowd against Spennymoor. Spennymoor under Jason Ainsley is still managing them today. Who I know reasonably well. They're now Conference North playoffs scenario. They're there or thereabouts professional, heading towards professionalism. And GFC competed while they were playing in the Combined Counties League with a side like that, and like say in front of that type of crowd. And I think the way Jersey Bulls have started, is it 30 out of 30 now? Yeah. So which I don't care what level people think that league is at in terms of all of the Step 6 leagues across the country. You don't win 30 games of football in any league without being a decent side.
Yeah, and they're playing a good brand of football as well, Kev.
Yeah.
I think that it will be an interesting one. I know that the Guernsey they've kind of said, right, we're where we are. We're going to sort of ensure it's a local club. We're not bringing anyone in. If it means that we get up or whether we stay where we are, it doesn't matter to us. But this is a local club. Yeah. The Bulls, the Jersey Bulls, I don't know what their vision for it is. Obviously over here, we have one professional sports club, and that's our rugby club that play in the English Championship.
Yeah.
And I was actually involved in about 15 years ago when they started bringing in some of the semi-pro guys. Some of them come in and work for me at Sport Development, and then took them up that to that next tier, if you like. And then, within 4 years, they were fully professional. And whilst that brings a level of championship rugby and some good crowds to Jersey, equally, there's probably a lot of people who would have preferred it back in the day because it was that local club, that was that pathway. Their academy very much fed into their first team, which now that's very rare if that's going to happen, if you see a Jersey lad playing first team rugby. So, it'll be interesting to see how the Bulls approach it. I genuinely think they'll in the next 2 years they'll be playing in the same league as Guernsey. Then we'll see where they want to go from there. But I think there's, there would be, and I'm sure they have. I'm sure they've looked at the model that Guernsey used. I think that undoubtedly, using a younger group of players in year one to develop them for year two and in year three. I think that they've taken on a bit of that rather than just going for your absolute best island players who might give you 3 years before they kind of go and have kids or kind of say, right, that's enough for me. I think it's important that they build in a level of sustainability there. I think the next be an academy for them.
I think the only thing I'd say is that I think step 5, it's always a tough league to get out of. The next one, there's usually only one goes up, and to get out of that at the first time of asking would really rubber stamp the quality of that team. No team does that unless they're a top team, go straight through. Because step 5 is, like I say, it's such a competitive league, more games, and because it's not, I don't know how you describe this, that level below Isthmian League football. There's a little bit less travelling for the UK boys, so you get some lads there picking up a couple hundred quid a week.
Absolutely.
So travelling half an hour down the road because they can't be bothered to travel, even though they're good enough to play at they're at the professional level. So it's a tough league, and it'd be interesting to see how they get on. I always, I said that about GFC, and they were lucky that actually 2 sides went up that year, because I think they finished second. I think I'm right in saying, although that was obviously down to, it was a big. A big backlog of games as well, but it was a fantastic achievement to go straight through. And I think if Jersey Bulls does that, then hats off to them for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think in terms of my role at the GFA, Kev, I think it's what I want to ensure is that actually football is much more inclusive. I think that, undoubtedly, as I just said earlier on with my sports development background, understanding that there are significant barriers to participation. We need to understand what those are. Over here, as an example, we've got a significant Portuguese population, but we don't have a Portuguese football team playing in the league, which we have to really question and ask why that is. And similarly, I think that I want to use the popularity of football as well to really engage much more in the community. Because football is the most popular sport in the world, so we have to use the strength of it. And some of the things that I was talking about, whether it be mental health or academic attainment or whatever, I think that football can have a huge part to play in that. I think part of my business plan and my vision that I presented to the GFA was very much growing the business side of the game and getting more people involved. And even things like the growth of walking football. For some of the old guys, and yes, I play it every now and again myself.
Yeah. Some would say you probably played walking football a few years ago, Dave.
Yes, you're right. But for a lot of the guys that I see coming along to that, what is actually the highlight of their week? Now, here we are, we're talking about a sport that is, all we need more volunteers. And there you go. You've got an opportunity for some of these guys, some of whom we know have had mental health issues, some have had physical health issues. But an opportunity to reintroduce them into the game again through volunteering stuff. So it's very much with joining the dots, because I always use an analogy. If we're going to grow the game, I could easily grow my hair, but it'd be the same hair. If I want to get more hair, I'm going to have to do something that actually makes me grow more hair. And I think that on a small island where you're restricted with a number of people, what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to attract those people that currently don't engage in football. And that's a challenge. But it's a challenge that, you know, as time goes on, we're now, as I say, just starting to understand what some of the real life barriers are. And I think that one of the criticisms I've always had of sports development, and as someone that's worked in it for a long, long time, is that I think until you've walked in someone's shoes, you know, you don't really understand a lot of the barriers. You know, ultimately, you know, a lot of us are middle class people. Not me, I'm working class through and through ultimately. But I think that genuinely, for the people that make some of those decisions for to be middle class people, how can you really have a vested interest if you don't genuinely understand the struggles that people go through on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah.
And so almost that vision that I've created, undoubtedly, it needs to start right at the very bottom and understand that.
Yeah, I'm with you. Okay. Yeah, I mean, look, I've just written down there about your kind of social mobility. The bottom line is, Dave, you're a guy who can relate and identify with people, you know, in every part of society, and I'm absolutely certain that you make a massive success of being the CEO of the JFA, because, as I say, I think you just have that way of getting on with people and identifying with people, and you've walked in plenty of people's shoes, I would suggest, over the years. And I'm sure that your approach, your style, your character, your personality will make football a more desirable product in Jersey for a start off, regardless of any planning and execution that you put into it, but just from your personality. Anyway, that's enough smoke blowing up your backside. Let's just. You're sorry?
And I was just saying, the reason that we love the game, Kev, is because it's full of opinions. Everybody's got opinions about something, and you know, undoubtedly that's going to be the challenge when you're in that role. You know, it's not too dissimilar to a manager. Listening, you know, I'm pretty sure that when you were the Guernsey manager that you were getting told that you should take a look at this one, you should pick that one, and you know, ultimately you will pick the team that you think's one's going to win in the park and during the game. And you know, it's no different when you're in the chief exec role, that you have your own vision and that you stick to your vision. And you know, if it wasn't to work out, then at least it's been my vision and it's not been influenced by anyone else. And that was certainly my tactic when I was a manager. That I thought, well, if I'm going to get beat, then I know at least it's my decision that's made that. So yeah,
100% agree with that, mate. You know, none of us know it all, and there's always more information that can be consumed. But as you say, ultimately you're the one who has to make the decisions. You've got to be comfortable with them, and with you 100% on that. Let's just finish off with a little bit on coaching, player development, trends, practices. We talked a little bit about kind of tactical, the way that the game's developed into a slightly more tactical kind of, the consciousness of tactics, because of, I think, Monday Night Football, Gary Neville and Jamie Carragher, for example, the tactics boards everywhere, the mini Mourinho kind of culture. There is a lot more, I think, tactical focus from coaches, players, fans, everyone. And I think that has a detrimental impact on the players that we're producing anywhere. I'm talking about anywhere. It could be Guernsey, Jersey, the UK, Scotland, Spain, wherever. For me, I still want to see real coaches, real player developers produce individuals who can handle the ball, who can. Personality is a word I like as a coach. I want players to have personality and to impose themselves. So if you're a wide player, go show me how to beat your fullback and create opportunities for your strikers. If you're a defender, make sure that you demonstrate that you have the kind of personality that loves to keep a clean sheet, that will not sleep at night if you're not defending and you're not blocking and you're not stopping and you're not tackling. Likewise, if you're a striker, if you get in the box, you know, make sure that you're the one who everyone identifies with as the guy who pulls a trigger quicker than anyone else, because he can make that half a yard of space and get a shot, rather than a team of number 10s and number 4s and number 6s who all play nice, tidy, tactical football. And I'm going on a bit of a rant there, but I mean, I say it with conviction because I think it's something that's a real challenge for the game.
A lot of it's about vanity, Kev. Genuinely, I think that since the evolution of, as you say, the Monday Night Footballs and stuff, I think that it's given a platform for coaches to now have an opinion that they possibly wouldn't have had in the past. And you know, we all believe that, you know, if this formation had been used in that particular game, then the outcome would have been very, very different. And you know, I'm 100% with you. I mean, for me, I kind of go back to my own sort of development as a coach, and I suppose that I am a product of the Scottish system. I went through the Scottish system. I think it is a good system. I think that from a coach ed side of things, it was very much based on the Dutch philosophy of small-sided games, of which he ensured that young players understood the principles of width, support, depth, penetration, stretching the game, and within that, the technical ability that you had to have to do that. And I don't think there's any one aspect apart from set pieces really that you can't get across in a 4v4 game. And so. And I say that was the Scottish FA philosophy, and I thought, and to this day I kind of stick to that.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, and I think that the problem is the culture, and the culture as a nation, and I think that ultimately you can have that understanding of the game, but ultimately you still have a win at all costs mentality, and I still see it youth coaches, particularly in Scotland. Quite a bit in England, not so much here, I'm delighted to say. But I think until such times as we really understand what player development looks like, and the environment needs to be right to allow that bit of freedom, to allow mistakes to happen. And I buy into the player-centred learning a lot, but I still think there needs to be some sort of coach-led input into that. I think we maybe kind of went a little bit too far into the player-centred approach, because I see players making the same mistakes time and time again.
Right.
And it's important that you are able to manage mistakes. But I think that my experience over the years is that even at under 9s, under 10s, even in fun festival tournaments, it's still all about winning the game. And I think that Gordon Strachan actually hit the nail on the head a couple of months ago when he said, you know what, in Scotland we're very good at producing average players. And what that means is that, they go through the academies, and as long as they're winning at under 16s and under 17s, and maybe getting a little nibble at sort of first team level, that's when the kids actually think they've made it, because they're nibble at 17. And I just don't see that hunger in that 17 to 20-year-old bracket. And as I say, but up until the age of sort of 16, there's just all this vanity coaching, and players are not being coached to improve. Do we really know how to improve players? What is it? What does? And that's different for every single player.
Yeah.
And as I say, I was probably one. My dad was an old-fashioned Bobby on the beat. That was his job, and he would just shout and scream. And a lot of the times it probably helped me, because I thought, right, I'm going to shut him up, and it probably did give me an extra gear, but that's certainly not going to work for a majority of players. So
no. Just one question, Dave. Yeah. Where do you see yourself as I categorise coaches. I think it's important. Some coaches are able to adapt and work with any level, age group, whatever. But where would you see yourself as a senior coach, as a development coach, as a youth coach, or as a kind of foundation phase kind of specialist? Where do you see and where do you enjoy coaching most?
Where do I enjoy? Probably about the under 18 level, Kev. I think because before you know the footballer, you've got to know the person, and I always enjoy having a little bit of banter with the boys, and making them feel as if it's a relaxed environment. Under 21s, I still take the jersey under 21s just now, and it's for me, it's probably about the challenge, and that the reason that I like it is just for the reasons that I've said, is that I think that for a lot of them, they believe the learning stops at about 15 and 16, because they've got to a point where they're having a little nibble at first team football. And after that, and first team coaching is just very much about physical preparation, a little bit of tactics, set pieces, and drills after drills after drills. But my philosophy in coaching is that without the learning, the winning is just not the same. And every single one of my sessions that I've always put on over the years, even in a PE lesson in a school, or whether it be a senior level, Muratti team level over here, every single session there has to be learning. They train to learn. Now hopefully that's not the vanity within me to say, yes, I have improved that player, because I think that the vanity probably comes in unrealistic expectations of you're putting on all these fancy drills just because they look good.
Yeah.
I think that for me, it's always been about challenging the players to the right level where the learning is maximised. I think you can almost overcoach them, and I see a lot of that. Tactical input, even technical input too much. So I think it's very much sort of finding that right balance. One of the things that I've actually got a little bit of concern about just now, which is I see obsessions going on with coaches. So the latest thing is like playing out for the back, right? And it's almost kind of like it's shunned on now that if the keeper actually hits a fantastic 60-yard pass out to the guy who's playing wide left, because he's not played it for the back. And I've seen it, I've witnessed it. Coaches shouting why we're not playing it out for the back. And it's we went through a phase when Pep with the Barcelona sides, where actually everybody tried to play like Barcelona because that's the way the game needed to be played. Well, that's all well and good if you've got these top world-class players in every single day, that you've got a philosophy that works with those players. And if you've seen Pep on the documentaries about how he emphasises philosophy, that we have to continue to play. That's, we're even if we're getting beat, we still play in this sort of same way.
Yeah.
And that works at that level. But I saw this boom at sort of grassroots, as if that's the only way that you can play the game now. And similarly, I'm seeing it more now that you have to always play out for the back. Now, if you look at Arsenal at the beginning of last year, they were getting conceding goal after goal after goal, and that's at the top level. But here now, I'm all for playing out for the back, Kev. I think good football is really important. I think that we have to make sure it's an attractive game, but ultimately, young players need to know that there's always option A, B, C, and D.
Absolutely.
It's not just about we have to stick to that one philosophy, and that's the bit that when I coach, I try to put a framework in place, but I'll always look at the adaptations of what you can and can't do and involve the players in that. And that's the bit that I always challenge the under-18s, under-21s to say, right, go on, and you've got yourself in this position. Tell me what the best options are. What other options you look at, and just allowing them that level of expression. And just as I say, still managing the mistakes. And I still think there's a level of management in there that I don't see enough of as well. I see a lot of textbook coaches who follow the manual. And ultimately, whilst that's great and they've got a qualification from it, the coach ed stuff is a framework. And I liken that to referees as well, Kev. I'm always asked about referees. I think that, refereeing, ultimately the framework is the rules of which the game has got to abide by.
Yeah.
But you and I well know a good referee is the one who manages the game.
You've got to apply it and interpret it in the right way for those players. Yeah.
And coaching for me is very, very similar. Use that framework, and how you allow players to express themselves whilst constantly learning is vital for me.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I 100% agree on those observations. I think I am finding that a lot of coaches, even top coaches, really, really top coaches who perhaps became obsessed. I use Michael Beale as an example. He said to me that there was a time when he was a little bit too obsessed with sessions, with how sessions looked, with the cones, where the cones were, and the organisation and what have you. Of course, we all need to be one of the biggest kind of parts you need to nail as a coach is to be prepared. But actually, in terms of performance, it's about the people, it's about the relationships, it's about the connections, it's about the way that you communicate and the way that you help them to understand, not whether or not you had this many cones set out in this particular session, this many minutes. I couldn't agree with you more. I think there's kind of like a journey of discovery that takes coaches, from maybe that kind of textbook scenario right the way around to back maybe where they started in some respects in terms of what about human nature, what they know to be true about human nature still needs to be applied as a coach and as a manager.
Absolutely, and I think that one of the things I'm quite passionate about, Kev, is coach mentoring. I was very fortunate that through my career I always had a good coach mentor. I had a guy called Hugh McCann at Alloa who I worked with for about 5 years, and Hugh I would class him as a professor of the game. He's very well qualified, but some of the intricacies in which he would go into the game that were really thought through. not just technically but tactically, and even some of the values that they work with as a coach as well. So, you're going to change. You've got a first team changing room if we were taking the first team for a friendly. And he would always say to me before he went in, I'm never ever going to criticise a young player in this changing room. It's always going to be the experienced guys that get it.
Yeah.
But, you've witnessed over the years that there's so many managers that they use a cop-out and they just criticise the young players and are frightened to actually really have a pop at the experienced players. And that's something that, again, I've very much brought into my coaching career and senior football, that I will never ever criticise any young player. They're there to enjoy themselves. They're there to be led by the senior player. The senior players have got a responsibility. And if they're not doing it, they'll be the ones that get told, because the young boys, they're still in that huge journey of development.
Absolutely, that kind of, the peaks and troughs, and they only start to even out, and they should theoretically, a successful player becomes successful because he evens out those troughs. Yeah. But that takes time, and I agree that the young players need to be given that time and space. And don't get me wrong, there's values, there's prerequisites, in terms of the respect and in terms of their personal standards that should never drop. But from a football perspective, I couldn't agree with you more.
Well, I think one of the big issues that we have around about coach mentoring is our approach to it, Kev. I think that, for a lot of us, we're very guarded. And actually, for someone to come in and work with you, a lot of people are really uncomfortable with that. And it's something I thrived on. I want, and if you're a coach that's worth your salt, you should always be inward and outward looking.
That's it. The transparency, that for me, transparency is so important, and whether it's in the coach mentoring from that perspective, or whether it's simply just about opening up your methods. So I don't know, there'll be certain coaches out there who will have you believe that you need to keep everything in house and that you can't share what you're doing on the training ground. But if it's that good, then most of it you should be able to share. Okay, set pieces and particular match preparation, I understand. But if it's that good, and you're as good as you say you are, then open it up and allow people to come in, and you might just learn something if someone gives you a little bit of advice or just a tweak or whatever. And I couldn't agree more. But I mean, as regards coach mentoring, it feels to me like online. I mean, we had Tony Mee on here a few weeks ago, and fantastic guy who's helped him in kind of a remote way to mentor so many people. The likes of Dick Bate, for example, who obviously is an absolute legend, and hugely fortunate enough to be in his presence for a short time. And I think these kind of guys now, people understand the importance and the influence that they have, not only on themselves but on other people, and that maybe we need to find more of those kind of characters for the next 20 years. Yeah,
absolutely. And and it's something that I've been doing now for about a year or two in Ireland, and a couple of young coaches, and you get, it's so rewarding, Kev. Got good, enthusiastic coaches, and two guys that's come back off a sports development degree and actually recognise that there's a value to be had by just getting a different point of view on things and challenging them and checking. And it's been great for me as well. But I do that because I'm passionate, because I had my own one, and I genuinely think that if any coach is willing to sort of really move on in the game, then undoubtedly having someone that can have that level of influence on you will do you no end of good.
100%. I dare say you're fulfilling that role for a lot of people, or have done, for a lot of people in Jersey over the last few years, albeit in a not necessarily a structured way, but just in a more kind of organic way as it's come. So, okay, Dave, this I think is probably the longest one I've done. I haven't covered everything. There's more that I could and would like to cover, but I'm not sure it'll be possible to get this out online without cutting it before too long. Such will be the size of the actual file. It's been an absolute, just a real joy to share an hour and a half with you talking football. Not just football, the influence that football has in society. Obviously reminiscing a little bit, and we could have done that for many more hours, I dare say. But mate, really appreciate you coming on. Thoroughly enjoyed it. I think the people who listen to this, whether that's on a podcast or watch it on YouTube, I think will really enjoy what you've got to say. You might even have some friends in Guernsey, or some fans in Guernsey after this. You never know.
Listen, Kev, thanks for having me on. It's been an absolute blast, and as you say, I think we could have went on for probably another couple of hours at least.
Definitely. Well, it'll will not be the last time we speak, obviously, big man. Listen, all the best in your new role with the JFA. I'm sure you'll be a massive success. Obviously, I wish you all the success in the world, with the exception of any time that your teams take the field against Guernsey. That goes without saying. I've got to get that in there at the end. But no, really, it's been an absolute pleasure, and just a privilege, to be honest, to share some time with you, pal.
No, I appreciate it, Kev.
Top man. Thanks a lot, Dave.
All the best.
Cheers, you too. Bye-bye.